The council chamber was silent, except for the soft hum of translation devices. Chen Rivas sat in the human section, watching as the Galactic Council prepared to judge a child. The child's name was Vectar. He was a Kresh, a species with dark gray skin and 4 arms. His people had sharp teeth and eyes that glowed red in dim light. To many species in the galaxy, the Kresh looked frightening. 6 months ago, they had looked more than frightening. They had been terrifying. The Kresh Empire had attacked 3 colony worlds without warning. They had killed thousands. They had destroyed entire cities. The war had lasted 4 months before the combined forces of the Galactic Council had pushed them back. The Kresh had surrendered, but the damage was done. Now, Vectar stood in a containment field in the center of the chamber. He was only 10 years old in human terms. He had done nothing wrong. He had been at school when the war happened. But he was Kresh, and right now, that was enough to condemn him. Chen watched as the council representatives spoke one by one. The Pelthians went first. They were a bird-like species with soft blue feathers and gentle eyes. "The Kresh are monsters," the Pelthian ambassador said. Her voice was filled with pain. "They killed my cousin and her entire family on Colony 7. How can we allow any of them to remain free? They are too dangerous." The Zentari spoke next. They looked like large insects with crystal-like shells that reflected light in rainbow patterns. "We agree," their ambassador clicked through his translator. "The Kresh have shown their true nature. They cannot be trusted. All of them should be sent back to their homeworld and contained there, forever." One by one, the species spoke. The Urians, who looked like floating jellyfish in environmental suits. The Vex, who were small, furry creatures with big eyes. The Thalen, who were tall and thin with skin like tree bark. All of them said the same thing in different ways. The Kresh were monsters. The Kresh could not be allowed to live freely in the galaxy. Some even suggested that the entire species should be eliminated to prevent future wars. Chen noticed that Vectar was shaking. The child's 4 hands were pressed against the containment field. His red eyes were wide with fear. He understood what was being said. He knew they were talking about killing everyone he loved, everyone from his home world, his parents, his friends, his teachers, everyone. The Kresh representative was not present. The council had banned them from attending until sanctions were decided. So Vectar stood alone, a child representing an entire species that the galaxy had decided to hate. Chen had read Vectar's file. The child had been on a school trip to a council station when the war ended. His parents had sent him away from the home world to learn about other species, to learn peace. The irony was bitter. Now the child could not go home. His own people would not take him back. He had been on council territory during the war, so the Kresh government considered him a traitor. The council considered him a monster. The child had nowhere to go. "The human delegation will now speak," the council leader said. She was a Thalan, tall and patient. She had always been fair to humanity, but even she looked uncomfortable with the situation. Chen stood slowly. All eyes turned to the human section. Humans were relatively new to the Galactic Council. They had only been members for 20 years. Most species still found them strange. Humans came from a death world, as they called it, a planet with extreme weather, dangerous animals, and countless ways to die. Humans were one of the few predator species in the council. They had forward-facing eyes, sharp teeth, and could eat almost anything organic. Many species were quietly afraid of humans, though they tried not to show it. "We have heard many voices today," Chen said calmly. "We have heard pain. We have heard anger. These feelings are valid. The Kresh Empire committed terrible crimes. Many innocents died." Several council members nodded. They seemed pleased that the human agreed with them. "But I have a question," Chen continued. "What crime has this child committed?" The chamber grew quieter. Some representatives shifted uncomfortably. "He is Kresh," The Pelthian ambassador said. That is enough. Is it? Chen asked. Is being born into a species that committed crimes enough to make someone guilty? If we follow this logic, where does it end? The human delegation should vote. The Zentari ambassador clicked impatiently. We do not need a philosophy lesson. The Kresh are monsters. We must decide their fate. Chen looked at Vector. The child was still shaking. Tears ran down his gray face. 4 arms wrapped around himself as if trying to become smaller. Invisible. I want to make sure I understand the Council's position, Chen said quietly. You are saying that if a species commits horrible acts, all members of that species are guilty, even children, even those who had no part in those acts, even those who oppose those acts. They are all monsters. Is that correct? Yes, several voices said at once. Then I have something to tell this council, Chen said. Something about humanity, something we do not talk about often. The chamber waited. Chen's voice remained calm, but something in it had changed. Something harder had entered it. If being part of a species that has committed horrible acts makes one a monster, Chen said, then I must inform you all that I am a monster too. The room fell completely silent. Even the translation devices seemed to pause. Humanity has done things that would make the Kresh Empire look tame, Chen continued. And I think it is time this council learned exactly what kind of monsters you allowed to join you 20 years ago. Chen pulled up a holographic display. Images began to appear in the air above the chamber floor. Images from Earth's history. Images that most humans preferred to forget. Vector stopped shaking. He looked up at the human ambassador with confusion and something that might have been hope. The council members leaned forward in their seats. None of them knew what was coming, but they could feel that something had changed in the chamber. The air itself seemed heavier. Chen Rivas began to speak, and the real trial began. Not the trial of a child, but the trial of an entire galaxy's ability to judge fairly. The first image that appeared in the holographic display showed a mushroom-shaped cloud rising over a city. The council members who knew human history recognized it immediately. Those who did not simply stared at the massive explosion frozen in time. This is Hiroshima, Chen said. One of 2 cities on Earth where humanity used atomic weapons against itself. In 3 days, we dropped 2 bombs that killed over 200,000 people. Most of them were civilians. Women, children, old people. We vaporized them in nuclear fire. The Pelthian ambassador made a soft chirping sound of distress. But that was war, she said. Surely it was necessary. Was it? Chen asked. Humanity still debates that question, but let me show you more. Let me show you what humanity is really capable of. The images changed. Trenches filled with bodies, cities reduced to rubble, concentration camps, gas chambers, mass graves. This was World War I and World War II, Chen continued. In less than 30 years, humanity killed over 70 million of its own kind. We invented weapons designed specifically to cause maximum suffering. We built factories whose only purpose was to kill people efficiently. We experimented on prisoners. We bombed civilian populations on purpose to break their spirit. This cannot be real, the Zentari ambassador clicked. No species would do this to itself. Oh, but we did, Chen said. The human's voice remained calm, almost conversational, which somehow made the words more horrifying. And that is not even close to the worst of it. Let me tell you about the genocides. More images appeared. Chen spoke about the Holocaust. 6 million dead. Then the Armenian genocide, the Rwandan genocide, the Cambodian genocide. The list went on. Each one was a moment when humanity had decided that certain groups of people were not worthy of living. Each one involved millions of dead. We killed each other over religion, Chen said. Over skin color. Over which piece of land we lived on. Over resources. Over ideas. over insults. We found thousands of reasons to murder each other, and we became very, very good at it. The council chamber was completely silent now. Many representatives looked sick. The Vex ambassador had covered his large eyes with his small furry hands. "But surely your species has moved past this," the Thailand council leader said. Her voice was weak. "You would not do these things now." "Would we not?" Chen asked. "Let me tell you about what we did to our own planet." New images appeared. Oil spills covering oceans, forests burning, animals going extinct, mountains of trash, poisoned rivers, cities covered in smog so thick that people could not see the sun. "We knew we were destroying our planet," Chen said. "Scientists told us for over 100 years. We knew we were driving species to extinction. We knew we were poisoning the air and water. We knew our children would suffer for it. And we kept doing it anyway because it was profitable. At least 75% of Earth's large animals went extinct because of human activity. We wiped out entire ecosystems. We changed the planet's climate. We nearly destroyed the only home we had. And for what? Money. Convenience. Because we could not be bothered to change." Chen paused and looked around the chamber. "Should I continue? I can tell you about slavery, where we treated our own species as property for thousands of years. I can tell you about the colonial empires, where we conquered and destroyed hundreds of cultures. I can tell you about the biological weapons we created, designed to spread disease and suffering. I can tell you about the torture methods we invented. Every horror you can imagine, humanity has done it. And usually, we have done it to ourselves." The Orion ambassador's environmental suit flashed with distressed colors. "Why are you telling us this?" they asked. "Why would you confess to such things?" Chen's expression did not change. "Because this council needs to understand what you did 20 years ago when you allowed humanity to join. You let in a species that had committed every crime you are accusing the Kresh of committing, and worse, much worse. But humans are different now," the Pelthian ambassador protested. "You have changed. You are peaceful." "Are we?" Chen asked softly. "How do you know?" "Because we have not attacked anyone in 20 years. The Kresh had not attacked anyone for 50 years before this war. Did that make them peaceful? Or were they just waiting?" The chamber erupted in nervous whispers. Several ambassadors began speaking at once. "Let me tell you something else about humanity," Chen continued, voice cutting through the noise. "Do you know what we call stories about our own atrocities? Entertainment? We write books about serial killers. We make movies about wars. We create games where the goal is to kill as efficiently as possible. We have entire museums dedicated to weapons and warfare. We celebrate our warriors and generals, even the ones who committed terrible acts. We have a saying on Earth," Chen said. "Those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. So we remember. We teach our children about every horrible thing we have done. We make them study the genocides and the wars and the atrocities. And do you know what some of them grow up to think? They think about how they could have done it better, how they could have been more efficient, more deadly." The Thailand council leader stood up. "Ambassador Chen, I must ask you to stop. You are upsetting the council." "Am I?" Chen looked directly at her. "Good. Because I am making a point, and I need everyone here to understand it clearly." Chen walked toward the containment field where Vector stood. The child had stopped crying. He was watching the human with wide eyes, not sure if what was happening was good or bad. "I have read the private council files," Chen said. "I know what you really think about humanity. You call us controlled chaos in your reports. You have secret protocols for what to do if humanity ever becomes aggressive. You limit how many ships we can have in council space. You watch us constantly because you are afraid of what we might do." Several ambassadors looked uncomfortable. They had not known humans had accessed those files. "You tolerate us because we are useful," Chen continued. "We are good soldiers, good engineers. We can live in harsh environments. We can solve problems that other species cannot. But you do not trust us. You never have. And you know why? Chen turned to face the entire council. Because you know that we are exactly what you are calling the creche. We are predators. We are violent. We are dangerous. We are monsters who came from a death world and learned to kill before we learned to talk. The room was completely silent again. Chen's words hung in the air like a threat. So I will make this very simple, Chen said. When you vote on what to do with Vector and the creche species, remember that you are also voting on what to do with humanity. Because by your logic, by your rules, we are the same. We are all monsters. Chen sat down. The silence in the chamber was so complete that Vector's quiet breathing could be heard through the containment field speakers. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The council members looked at each other, uncertain. Some looked angry. Some looked afraid. Most looked confused. They had not expected the human to speak like this. They had not expected to be put on trial themselves. The Thalen council leader cleared her throat. Ambassador Chen, I understand your point, but the situations are not the same. Humanity proved itself worthy of joining the council. You underwent a probationary period. You accepted restrictions. You have been peaceful members for 20 years. Have we proven ourselves? Chen asked, still seated. Or have we simply not been given a reason to show you what we really are? The question made several ambassadors shift uncomfortably in their seats. Chen stood up again and walked toward the containment field. Each step echoed in the silent chamber. When the human reached the field, Chen placed a hand against it. On the other side, Vector looked up with fearful hope. Look at this child, Chen said softly. He is 10 years old. He has 4 arms and red eyes and sharp teeth. He looks like a predator. He looks dangerous. And because of that, because of what his species did, you want to punish him. You want to exile his entire species. Some of you want them dead. Chen turned to face the council. The human's expression was calm, but something burned in those forward-facing predator eyes. Let me tell you what I see when I look at Vector, Chen said. I see a child who was sent away from home to learn about peace. I see a child whose parents believed in a better future. I see a child who is now alone because both his own people and the galaxy have abandoned him. I see a child who has done nothing wrong except be born into the wrong species at the wrong time. Ambassador Chen, the Zentari representative clicked impatiently. We have already heard your speech about human atrocities. We understand your point. But we must vote on the creche situation. What is your vote? Chen's expression hardened. My vote depends on what you are really voting for. Are we voting to punish a child for crimes he did not commit? Are we voting to condemn an entire species with no possibility of redemption? Because if that is what we are voting for, then I have something to say first. Then speak and be done with it, the Zentari said. Chen looked at Vector again. The child's 4 hands were pressed against the containment field, reaching toward the human, toward the only person in the entire chamber who had spoken in defense of him. You call this child a monster because of what his species did, Chen said. The human's voice was quiet, but it carried through the entire chamber with perfect clarity. You call the creche monsters because they attacked without warning, because they killed, because they destroyed, because they look dangerous, because they have the capacity for violence. Chen turned back to the council. By that logic, by that exact same logic, I am a monster too. The chamber seemed to hold its breath. My species are monsters, Chen continued, and the human's voice grew harder, stronger. We are the descendants of persistence hunters who chased prey until it died of exhaustion. We are the species that killed off every other intelligent species on our planet, and then pretended we did not know what happened to them. We conquered every corner of our death world and called it manifest destiny. Chen began walking toward the center of the chamber, moving away from Vectar's containment field. We weaponized the atom. We split matter itself and turned it into a bomb. And then we built thousands of them, enough to destroy our planet many times over. We pointed them at each other and called it peace through mutually assured destruction. Several council members started to speak, but Chen's voice cut them off. "We have imagined 1,000 ways to end civilizations," Chen said, voice rising. "We have written them down in books. We have made movies about them. We have simulated them in games, nuclear war, biological weapons, artificial intelligence, asteroid impacts. We have thought about every possible way to destroy everything, and we have entertained ourselves with these thoughts." The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. The atmospheric systems hummed louder, struggling to compensate. "We are predators," Chen said, and something primal entered the human's voice, something that made the prey species in the room instinctively pull back. "We have eyes that face forward to track movement. We have teeth designed to tear flesh. We can run for days without stopping. We can survive injuries that would kill most species. We heal fast. We adapt faster. We are one of the most efficient persistence predators in the known galaxy." Chen's hands clenched into fists. "We come from a planet where everything wants to kill us, where the weather can kill, where the water can kill, where the plants can kill, where invisible bacteria can kill. We learned to survive in a place that was actively trying to destroy us, and we became the apex predator of that nightmare world." The lights in the chamber flickered. Several ambassadors looked up nervously. "And you let us into your council," Chen said. "You let us join your civilization. You gave us access to your worlds, your technology, your people. You let the monsters in, and you did it willingly." Chen's voice became a roar that echoed off the chamber walls. "So if you are going to stand here and call a 10-year-old child a monster, if you are going to condemn an entire species with no chance of redemption, then you must look at me and say it to my face. You must call me a monster too. You must call every human in the galaxy a monster because we have done worse." The room shook. The entire chamber vibrated with the force of Chen's voice. The atmospheric systems screamed. Several ambassadors grabbed their seats to steady themselves. The holographic displays flickered and died. Even the containment field around Vectar wavered for a moment. In the sudden silence that followed, Chen stood in the center of the chamber. The human's chest heaved with emotion. Around the room, dozens of species stared in shock and fear. "So, make your choice," Chen said, voice dropping back to normal volume but losing none of its intensity. "Make your choice right now. Either admit that a species can change, can grow, can become better than its worst moments, or admit that you made a mistake 20 years ago. Admit that you let monsters into your civilization and you can never trust them. Admit that redemption is impossible." Chen pointed at Vectar. "That child and my species stand on the same ground. If you condemn him, you condemn us. If you exile the creche, you must exile humanity. If you suggest eliminating his species, then you must eliminate mine. We are the same. We are all monsters in your eyes." The human walked back to the containment field and placed both hands against it. Vectar pressed his 4 hands against the same spot from the inside. They looked at each other, the human and the creche child, 2 predator species in a galaxy of prey. "But if you believe," Chen said softly, voice carrying despite its quietness, "if you truly believe that species can learn, can choose peace, can become better than their worst instincts, then you must give Vectar the same chance you gave humanity. You must give the creche the same opportunity for redemption that you gave us." Chen turned one final time to face the council. "So vote, but know that you are not just voting on the fate of the creche. You are voting on what kind of civilization you want to be. One that believes in growth and change, or one that condemns children for the sins of their ancestors." The chamber remained silent. The only sound was the soft hum of the atmospheric systems returning to normal, and the quiet sobbing of a child who finally understood that someone was fighting for him. The Thalen Council leader stood slowly. Her bark-like skin had paled to a lighter shade. She looked at Chen, then at Vector, then at the assembled council members who were all talking at once. "Order," she said. Her voice was shaky. "I call for order in this chamber." The voices died down, but the tension remained. Every species looked uncomfortable. Some looked angry. Others looked thoughtful. A few looked terrified. "The human delegation has made a compelling argument," the council leader said carefully. "We must now discuss and vote on the matter. Does anyone wish to speak?" The Pelthian ambassador stood immediately. Her blue feathers were ruffled, a sign of distress. "I wish to speak against the humans' argument. With all respect to Ambassador Chen, the situations are not the same. Humanity was different when they joined the council." "How so?" Chen asked, still standing by Vector's containment field. "You had already begun to reform yourselves," the Pelthian said. "You had not had a major war in decades. You had unified your planet. You had already proven you could change." "We unified because we had to," Chen replied. "We nearly destroyed ourselves. We came together because the alternative was extinction. Is that proof of moral growth or just survival instinct?" The Pelthian hesitated. I do not know." "But you passed our evaluation. You showed peaceful intent." "Did we?" Chen asked. "Or did we just tell you what you wanted to hear? How do you know we meant it? How do you know we were not just waiting for the right moment?" "Because you have been peaceful for 20 years, the Zentari ambassador clicked. "That is the proof." 20 years, Chen said quietly. The Kresh had been peaceful for 50 years before this war. Was that not proof enough for them? How long must a species be peaceful before you trust them? How long before you stop calling them monsters? The question hung in the air. Several ambassadors looked at each other uncertainly. The Vex ambassador spoke up, his small voice amplified by his translator. "But the Kresh attacked without warning. Without provocation, they destroyed entire colonies. How can we forgive that?" "You cannot forgive it," Chen said. "And I am not asking you to. The Kresh Empire must face consequences for what they did. They must pay reparations. They must be monitored. They must prove they have changed. But that child had nothing to do with it." "He is still Kresh," the Vex said stubbornly. "And I am still human," Chen replied. "Do you hold me responsible for Hiroshima? For the Holocaust? For every human atrocity? I was not alive when those things happened. Should I be punished for them?" The small furry ambassador had no answer. An Orion representative's environmental suit flashed yellow, indicating they wished to speak. The human raises a valid point. We cannot punish individuals for the actions of their ancestors or their governments. That is not justice. That is revenge. "Revenge?" The Pelthian ambassador's voice rose sharply. "My family died in that attack. My cousin's children were vaporized. And you call my desire for justice revenge?" "I call your desire to punish an innocent child revenge," the Urian said firmly. "Justice would be punishing those responsible, the Kresh government, the military leaders, the soldiers who committed atrocities. Not children, not civilians who opposed the war." The Pelthian sat down heavily, her feathers drooping. She looked at Vector through the containment field. The child stared back with red eyes full of tears. After a moment, she looked away. "I propose we take a recess," the Zentari ambassador clicked. "This is too important to decide in anger. We need time to think." "I second that proposal," said a voice from the back. It was a Thalen diplomat, younger than the council leader. "We need to consider all implications of our decision." The council leader nodded. "Very well. We will recess for 1 standard hour. When we return, we will vote. Council is dismissed." The ambassadors began to leave, talking in small groups. Chen noticed that several species were arguing among themselves. The Pelthians were divided. Some of the Zentari were clicking rapidly at each other, which meant disagreement. Even the usually unified Vex were squeaking in debate. Chen remained by the containment field. Vectar had slumped to the floor inside, all four arms wrapped around himself. "Thank you," Vectar said softly in his own language. The translator picked it up. "No one has ever defended me before." Chen knelt down to be at the child's eye level, even though the containment field separated them. "You deserve to be defended. You did nothing wrong." "But my people did," Vectar said. "They killed so many. How can I ever make up for that?" "You cannot make up for what others did," Chen said gently. "But you can choose what kind of person you want to be. You can choose to be different, to be better." "Like humans did?" the child asked. Chen smiled sadly. "We are still trying. Every day we are still trying, and we fail sometimes, we make mistakes, but we keep trying. That is all anyone can do." During the recess, Chen walked through the Council Station's observation deck. Other humans found the ambassador there, looking out at the stars. "That was quite a speech," said Commander Williams, the head of human security at the station. She was a tall woman with dark skin and gray hair tied back in a tight bun. "You made a lot of species very uncomfortable." "Good," Chen said. "They should be uncomfortable." "You also made them afraid of us," Williams pointed out. "Some species are already calling for restrictions on human military ships. They are worried we might be planning something." "Let them worry," Chen said. "Better they fear us than underestimate us, and better they understand that we stand for something." "You are gambling with humanity's position in the Council," Williams said. "No," Chen replied. "I am reminding them why they need us. They need someone who understands monsters, because they are too innocent to recognize them. They thought the Kresh were the first real threat they had faced. They have no idea how dangerous the galaxy really is." Williams was quiet for a moment. "Do you think they will vote to help the child?" "I do not know," Chen admitted. "But I know that if they condemn him, we need to reconsider our place in this council. I will not be part of a civilization that punishes children for being born into the wrong species." When the hour ended, the council reconvened. Chen returned to the human section. Vectar was still in his containment field, but he sat up straighter when he saw Chen return. There was hope in his red eyes now. Fragile, desperate hope. The council leader called for order. "We will now discuss the matter before voting. Are there any final arguments?" The Pelthian ambassador stood. Everyone expected her to argue for harsh punishment. Instead, she said, "I have been thinking during the recess about my cousin's children, about what they would want, and I realize they would not want me to hurt a child, even a Kresh child. They were kind people. They believed in compassion." She paused, her voice breaking. "I still want justice for what happened to them. But Ambassador Chen is right. This child is not justice. This child is just another victim of the same war that took my family." She sat down. The chamber was silent with shock. "I also wish to speak," said the younger Thalen diplomat who had called for the recess. "I have reviewed human history in detail during the break. Ambassador Chen did not exaggerate. Humanity has done terrible things, but they have also done something remarkable. They have tried to become better. They have built institutions to prevent future atrocities. They have taught their children about their mistakes so they will not repeat them. They have proven that change is possible." The diplomat looked at Vectar. "If we do not give the Kresh the same chance, we are admitting that we do not really believe change is possible. We are admitting that our acceptance of humanity was a mistake, and I do not believe it was a mistake." One by one, other ambassadors stood to speak. The debate continued for another hour. Some argued for harsh punishment. Others argued for mercy. But Chen noticed something important. They were no longer debating whether Vectar was a monster. They were debating what justice really meant. The council leader stood one final time. Her bark-like face showed deep grooves of stress. This was not the kind of decision she had expected to face when she had taken this position. "We will now vote," she announced. "The question before us is twofold. First, what shall we do with Vectar, the Kresh youngling currently in our custody? Second, what sanctions shall we impose on the Kresh species as a whole? These are separate questions and will be voted on separately." She paused. "Let us begin with Vectar. Those who vote to return him to the Kresh homeworld, where he will likely face execution as a traitor, indicate now." 3 lights appeared on the voting board. Only 3 out of 47 council species. Chen noted that none of them were species who had lost people in the Kresh attacks. "Those who vote to keep Vectar in permanent detention indicate now." 5 more lights, still a small number. "Those who vote to grant Vectar asylum and an opportunity for rehabilitation indicate now." The board lit up with 39 lights, the chamber filled with soft sounds of surprise. It was an overwhelming majority. Vectar made a sound that might have been a sob or a laugh. His 4 hands pressed against the containment field as if he could push through it to freedom. "The council has decided," the council leader said. "Vectar will be granted asylum. However, he cannot be released without a guardian. Is there any delegation willing to take responsibility for his care and education?" The chamber fell silent. Chen could feel every eye turning toward the human section. Everyone knew what was coming. Chen stood. "The human delegation will take full responsibility for Vectar's guardianship. We will provide for his care, his education, and his protection. We will ensure he becomes a productive member of galactic society." "So noted," the council leader said. She looked relieved. Vectar will be released into human custody following this session. Inside the containment field, Vectar was crying openly now. But these were different tears. These were tears of relief and hope. "Now we must vote on sanctions against the Kresh species," the council leader continued. Her voice was heavy. "This is not a simple matter. The Kresh Empire committed serious crimes, but we must also consider the precedent we set. Ambassador Chen has made us face difficult truths about justice and redemption." The debate that followed was long and complex. In the end, the council decided on a combination of measures. The Kresh would pay reparations to the families and worlds affected by their attacks. They would be limited in their military capacity for 20 years with regular inspections. They would have observers on their homeworld to ensure compliance, and they would be required to send students and diplomats to learn from other council species, just as Vectar's parents had tried to do. But they would not be exiled. They would not be eliminated. They would be given a chance to prove they could change. When the vote was finished and the council adjourned, Chen walked to the containment field one last time. A technician was already working to deactivate it. "You are free now," Chen told Vectar. "You are safe." The field shimmered and disappeared. For the first time since the war ended, Vectar stood without barriers around him. He took one hesitant step forward, then another. Then he ran to Chen and wrapped all 4 arms around the human in a tight embrace. Chen hugged him back. "It is all right. You are safe now." "Why did you do this?" Vectar asked through his tears. "Why did you help me? Your species did not have to. You could have let them condemn me." Chen knelt down to look at the child directly. "Do you know what the most important thing humanity learned from all our mistakes is?" Vectar shook his head. "We learned that we all have monsters inside us," Chen said softly. "Every person, every species. We all have the capacity for violence, for cruelty, for terrible things. But we also have the capacity for kindness, for compassion, for growth. The measure of a person or a species is not whether the monster exists. It is what we choose to do with it." "What did humanity choose?" Vectar asked. "We chose to build instead of destroy," Chen said. We chose to protect instead of attack. We chose to give others the chances we were given. It is not always easy. We fail sometimes, but we keep choosing. Every day we keep choosing. Vector was quiet for a moment. What if I fail? What if I cannot be better than my people were? Then you try again, Chen said simply. That is all anyone can do. Try, fail, learn, and try again. That is how growth happens. Commander Williams approached them. Ambassador, the transport is ready. We should take Vector to the human embassy. He will need proper quarters and clothes and food. Does his species have any special requirements? I can eat most organic matter, Vector said shyly, like humans. My people are omnivores. Williams smiled. Good. That will make things easier. Come on, kid. Let us get you settled. As they walked through the council station, other species watched them pass. Some looked curious. Some looked disapproving. But several nodded respectfully at Chen. The Pelthian ambassador who had lost her family even gave a small bow as they passed. The human embassy was located in the station's outer ring. It was not the largest embassy, but it was comfortable. The staff had already prepared quarters for Vector. The room had a bed, a desk, and a window showing the stars. This is mine? Vector asked, looking around in wonder. This is yours, Chen confirmed. You will live here while you study and learn. We have arranged for tutors in galactic history, languages, mathematics, and sciences. We will also teach you about human culture and about other species in the council. Is there anything you want to learn? Everything, Vector said immediately. I want to learn everything. I want to understand how to make peace, how to prevent wars, how to help my people become better. Chen smiled. That is a good goal. It will take time, but we will help you. That night, after Vector had eaten his first meal at the embassy and fallen asleep in his new bed, Chen stood on the embassy balcony looking out at the stars. Commander Williams joined the ambassador. You made a lot of enemies today, Williams said, and a few allies. The vote was closer than it looked. If you had not spoken up, Vector would be dead. I know, Chen said. Was it worth it? Risking humanity's position for one creche child? Chen was quiet for a long moment. Do you know what I was thinking when I looked at Vector in that containment field? What? I was thinking about a story from Earth's history, Chen said, about a man who saved over 1,000 people during one of our genocides. He spent his fortune and risked his life to protect people who were being hunted. Later, when people asked him why he did it, he said something I have never forgotten. What did he say? Williams asked. He said, if you save one life, you save the world entire, Chen replied. Because that one person might go on to save others. They might teach others. They might change things in ways we cannot predict. Every life has the potential to matter. Every person deserves a chance. Williams nodded slowly. You think Vector will change things? I think Vector will try, Chen said. And trying is where change begins. In his room, Vector lay awake in his new bed. For the first time in months, he was not afraid. He thought about what Ambassador Chen had said, about monsters and choices, about trying and failing and trying again. He thought about his people, still on their homeworld, facing the consequences of their war. He thought about all the species in the galaxy who feared them now. He thought about the long, difficult path ahead. But he also thought about the Pelthian ambassador who had chosen mercy over revenge, about the council members who had voted to give him a chance, about the human who had stood up and called themselves a monster so that Vector would not have to face that label alone. He thought about how Ambassador Chen had made the room shake with the force of conviction. With the power of choosing to be better than the worst parts of yourself, and Vector made a choice. He chose to believe that change was possible. He chose to work toward becoming someone who could help his people find redemption. He chose to honor the chance he had been given by becoming worthy of it. Outside his window, the stars shone bright. Somewhere out there was his home world. Somewhere out there were his people, struggling with their own choices. Vector closed his eyes and made a promise to himself. He would learn. He would grow. He would become someone who could help others make the right choices. He would prove that monsters could choose to be something else. And perhaps one day he would go home and teach his people what he had learned, that the true measure of strength was not in the capacity for violence, but in the choice to show mercy, not in the ability to destroy, but in the commitment to build. He would teach them what a human had taught him, that everyone has monsters inside them, but everyone also has the power to choose what they do with those monsters. In the silence of his room, with the stars watching through the window, Vector smiled for the second time that day. It was a small smile, fragile and uncertain, but it was genuine. It was hope. And hope, as humanity had proven, was where redemption began.